morning, and you are welcome to this edition of Dialogue Box of Blossom Nigeria. And it's been an interesting ride talking about different socio-political issues, how they affect our nation, Nigeria, and how we think that the government should also put measures in place to provide solutions to some of these challenges. And every one of us having the right mindset, knowing fully well that we all have a role to play in contributing our quota to nation building. So this morning, we are going to be looking at an evaluation of the readiness of the government for the reopening of schools that will be taking place from tomorrow. How prepared are they? Have they really put a lot of measures, talking about hygiene, talking about the health security measures that they need to put in place for the students to resume schools. So with this in mind, we'll start our discussion this morning. We'd like you to call in on 09052525107 and also send us your comment on what you think on that same line, and talk to us even as we are live on Facebook right now. You can also visit our website later today on www.BlossomNigeria.com. So this morning, before we go fully into our discussion, we'd like you to have some news updates and areas we think you should look at as we also work on improving our nation on every side. We have it that, just a second. First on our list is the fact that the US-based doctor who was on television saying that hydroxychloroquine is a cure for coronavirus is said to have been sued to court for malpractice after one of our patients allegedly died with a meth needle in her arm in February 2019. So according to the Daily Mail of London, the family of Leslie Novell took Dr. Stella Emmanuel to court, claiming her negligence resulting in the death of one of the patients. So Novell had complained about a methamphetamine needle that broke off in her arm, and the claimant said that Novell went to the Sabine Medical Center where Emmanuel was working and was given only medication. So according to them, no attempt was made to remove the needle fragment that had broken off inside her arm, and both Emmanuel and another doctor who attended to the patient failed to take a closer look at the arm of the patient or alert the authorities, so they alleged. So whatever be the case, we think that this is a little complicated, because this is the same doctor that is saying that she knows that hydroxychloroquine can cure COVID-19. So why is it that is something that transpired in February 2019? Even if anything like that, why should it be now that such a matter will be taken to court? So we would think that from the global health indications, it is not just about a Nigerian issue this time around. The health authorities all around the world should look into it and ensure that justice is done and there will be no undue, maybe delayed justice or undue giving the wrong judgment for things that maybe may not have deserved such judgment. So we think that the World Health Organizations and different legal authorities around the world should look into this. All right, we also have it that parents of private schools in Ogun State are protesting, and they demand that they are not supposed to pay the 25,000 naira as COVID-19 testing fee that the government has proposed. And the government said it will bear the full cost of the test for boarding school for senior secondary 3, that's SS3 students in public schools. So it asked the private school owners to ensure that their boarding pupils, as the students, are certified COVID-19 negative. So the state said private schools could also apply for waiver. So hundreds of patients and their wards who visited the 54-gene COVID-19 mobile laboratory located within the state-owned MTR Specialist Hospital in Abeokuta the state capital were asked to pay 25,000 naira per student. So the angry parents blocked the hospital gates, insisting that their children should be tested like their other counterparts in public schools. So in other words, they are not supposed to pay the 25,000 naira that Ogun State government is asking them to pay. And if other students in the public schools are not being asked to pay that same amount, they don't see any reason why they should pay that. So we also think is a very, very strong point that they have raised, because if their counterparts in the public schools are not paying 25,000 naira for testing fee, why should the parents of students in private schools pay 25,000 naira for testing fee? So that is not the right thing to do at this time, and we advise the Ogun State government to look into this again and retract that decision and work on, maybe give them something else that they can do to ensure that their students are testing COVID-19 negative, excuse me, but not giving them a fee to pay. Then we also have it that several comments have been coming in regarding former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who is asking that Nigeria's foreign debt is hitting almost $23 billion. So he is demanding an apology on behalf of several million Nigerians from President Muhammadu Buhari and the All Progressives Congress. Though it sounds a bit political, we have said that we will look into this matter and other connected issues around Nigeria's foreign debt profile tomorrow, that's on Tuesday. So the former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, in a statement from his media office on Sunday and monitored by the Daily Times, has said that since the lender country takes ownership of choice infrastructure on the Nigerian soil, no negotiation could be weaker than that. So he sees it as weak negotiation on behalf of the President Muhammadu Buhari-led government. So according to him, Nigeria had a total foreign debt stock of $7 billion on May 29, 2015. It says, but today, the foreign debt is around $23 billion and is rapidly rising. So he said that debt by itself is not a bad thing, but debt budgeted for such unproductive ventures like the proposed $500 million upgrade of the Nigerian Television Authority and other sundry bogus contracts is debt that could, or rather debt that could lead to death. So he advised against trading Nigeria's sovereignty for this type of profligacy. Yes. So we have that coming from the former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar asking President Muhammadu Buhari to look into Nigeria's debt profile and see what can be done. Though there are a lot of political undertones in it, but there's a point he is making that we shouldn't allow the debt profile to rise even higher. Just like he said, some of the lender countries are giving choice infrastructure in the country in exchange for the debt, and we still have feedback reaching us where the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amici, is saying that to pay back some of those debts will take Nigeria about 20 years. So we'll look into more of that tomorrow, but this is a very strong point coming from Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. All right, moving on. We have that Ibadan indigenes under the auspices of Central Council of Ibadan Indigenes, that's CC2, the short form of the Ibadan Indigenes Central Council, they've raised an alarm of an alleged marginalization of Ibadan indigenes in the appointment of Vice Chancellor of the University of Ibadan. So addressing a press conference at Ibadan House Okeare in Ibadan, the CC2 President General Chief Adeyemi Soladoyi stated that it is now the turn of Ibadan indigene to become the next Vice Chancellor of the Premier University. So CC2 has also asked the University of Ibadan Governing Council, then the President Muhammadu Buhari government and other stakeholders in the country to ensure that the next Vice Chancellor of the institution which is due to succeed the incumbent on December 1, 2020, comes from Ibadan. So the CC2 president, or the President General, has stated that it was unfortunate that since the establishment of the University of Ibadan in 1948 till date, no Ibadan indigene has emerged as its vice chancellor. So we also find this very interesting, and it's not a very good one, because we think if we have a situation where the academic institution has different people from different tribes and ethnic regions across the country, there's no need asking that there should be a specific time where Ibadan indigene should present or produce the next vice chancellor. We don't need that, because if it's in an academic institution, then everything should be done based on the academic standards and the academic levels, not because of maybe where the part of the country where you are from. So it's part of what we are talking about in, even though we talk about unity in diversity, then we should push it, we should pursue it, and we should not allow it to affect the choices we make in the academic areas, the different political institutions, and different parts of the education sector across the country. So we think that the CC2 President General should look into this again, and no matter what, we don't do a form of, we shouldn't encourage a form of rotation of vice chancellorship where this ethnic group will produce, another ethnic group will produce. It should be based on merit, and that is how it should go. All right, now moving on, we still have it that the Nigerian government has received financing from the African Development Bank, AFDB, for the Nigerian electrification project. So that's good news coming to us, that there's a plan for the electrification of the rural areas, and the federal government has received financing from the African Development Bank, AFDB. So that's a nationwide initiative aimed at delivering energy access to undeserved communities in the country. So according to AFDB, the project supports the government's goal to increase electricity across the nation as defined in the National Development Agenda, and will provide electricity to households, small to medium-sized enterprises, and public institutions in a least cost and timely manner, though of and mini-grid solutions. So that's a very nice one coming from the Ministry of Power, but this time around getting some financial support from the African Development Bank, AFDB. Then we still have it that the migration of Nigeria's financial architecture from manual to digital operations is saving the nation about 120 billion naira for the country monthly. This is according to the Accountant General of the Federation, AGF, Ahmed Idris. So he made a revelation when legislators visited his office on oversight functions. So Idris told the lawmakers that government's decision to digitalize most of its operations and adopt information communication technology, ICT, has been saving the nation lots of money. So he talks about the fact that on a monthly basis, the country saved about 120 billion naira as a result of this move. So the funds the AGF has said would have been spent on manual operations like the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System, IPPIS, and Government Integrated Financial Management Information System, GIFMIS, which are two of the digital platforms that have helped the government to make the savings. So whatever this has done for Nigeria, we think is a good one, and the monies that are being saved should be used for the right purpose, as we are recovering some of these monies from the system. Like he said, moving from manual to digital is saving the country lots of money. So most of those monies should also be invested back into the system, and they should be used for the right purpose for which they were budgeted or they have been recovered. So now we have a very big, we've been looking at the education sector for a while now. Since last week, we've devoted lots of time to education because is around the corner. The resumption is tomorrow, and several agitations and concerns have been coming in, both from parents, from stakeholders, from school owners, even from the government, on the examination dates, how the students should resume, what and what should be put in place. So these are some of the things that have been the major concerns. And now that is here, we are now evaluating the readiness of the government for the reopening of schools. So the point is that even though, let's just give us a brief background on it, that it is a fact that senior secondary school class 3 students are getting ready to resume on Tuesday, that's tomorrow, in preparation for their final examinations. So all schools have been shut, or they had been shut in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. But following the safety guidelines developed by the federal and state governments, it was agreed that SS3 students alone can return to enable them prepare for their terminal examinations. So it was supposed to be SS3 and GSS3, but they said it should be SS3 alone for now. So the question remains, how much more can be achieved in making schools in Nigeria ready for the resumption in this post-COVID-19 era? This is looking at some of the guidelines that the government has brought, even for private schools. But for the government schools themselves, how much is in place to ensure the safe environment, facilities, and if everywhere has been truly fumigated, as they have said. So we also have it that, according to more reports reaching us, state governments are already in some areas fumigating schools in fulfillment of one of the conditions for the reopening of schools. Okay, we have a call here, and we'll quickly take this. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, ma.
You are welcome to Dialogue Box on Blossom Nigeria.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. So we have a major concern. Schools are opening tomorrow for the SS3 students, but we still have a lot of people who are still like, is government really sincere about the implementation of the guidelines, the safety guidelines that they have given to private schools to implement? Because most public schools as at now don't seem ready. So in Lagos, for instance, we only hear that it's some of the model schools that have been given some form of upgrading or maintenance or cleaning, but almost all the other schools, nothing is happening. So what is your opinion on this?
If you ask me, in schools are ready, I want to revert that question. Are the government ready, not the schools now? Because the school will tell you they are looking up to the government. They are looking for any directive from the government.
Okay.
They want the government to give them the directive before they take any action.
Yeah.
And so, in one way or the other, I'm sure from all their meetings, I am agreeing, because, like my daughter, I was there last week, I saw what they are trying to do. Trying to protect ground, clearing off. They put something in place, like their hand wash statement. They've done something like that. They're putting up banners to make the children aware about how to protect themselves, or to preventive guides.
Okay.
What they're supposed to do. But that is not sufficient, we all know.
Okay.
Like we have to say that the children who have to go through a COVID-19 test, they have to present a negative certificate.
Okay.
And now they have come up with a for private schools, they have recommended some things where they can go and do this test. For the public schools, they are going to put the bill. Do they know if parents are even ready for this thing? These are our children.
Yeah.
If they are going to do anything for children, let them just do whatever thing they are still waiting. I'm sure they want to take things from Ogun State as well, since they are co-neighbors. Like, okay, all our children have been doing it, they will go through tests as well. They are supposed to put things in place to make all this, because all the money that the government has received on this COVID relief is so much that it can help.
Yeah.
If you don't concentrate on our children alone. If you have to concentrate on the children alone, now, okay, but our children, they are our future generation. Let us work on them. So all the relief fund is gotten internationally and home and abroad.
Yeah.
They can invest into them.
Yes.
And prepare them in countries. Make face masks available. Prepare the sick bill. So that anytime it might not be COVID-19, maybe it's just for the and the sick bill well prepared. And if they have any case of such, they can also have an isolation
they can take the child
to
to.
come and pick up their children.
Yeah.
This should be put in place properly. And it's a large that all of this is monetary. And the school will tell you they don't have the finance, everybody's going on their salary.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's not functioning. You can't say they have any skills that they are collecting.
Okay.
Or putting things in place.
Mm.
So as you see, government themselves will release funds to school and make sure they send out the sectors, make sure these things are on ground.
Okay.
Not just talk with mouth, okay, we have released social videos to the public school in Lagos, or we have released social videos, and the next thing, we don't know where the money goes. We don't know how it's being implemented. That's one issue we have in this country. We always hear of videos going out, but how it goes, what is being used for, we don't know.
We don't know.
And at the end of the day, we come back to square one.
Okay.
So if the government really wants to take this serious, they will release the funds, monitor everything that is being done. And
Yeah.
they have all this, they have now coordinators, they have people that can do all this. Let them go out one by one. I mean, it's not the government itself that will go to all these schools. We have to present it and they're giving reports.
Okay.
Simple reports, visual reports, pictures, videos. All this is going live because it is recorded. When they see reports, okay, see that your school, at least they have all their stories the way their schools are doing. So person is in charge, so person is in charge. The person in charge of schools will also get somebody on that, okay, you go to this part, I go to this part. It will be done. I mean, we have so much work to be done, and so people are holding and trying to siphon. I mean, it is well.
It is well. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your call. I would have asked you more questions, but I think you have answered them because I wanted to quickly get your opinion on what about using students for cleaning and for different forms of sanitation in the school compounds. It's like an inevitable task that a lot of the students will have to go through. And with the social distancing and the other safety guidelines, do you think is the wise choice at this time?
It cannot really work. When you need the children to do all of that,
Yeah.
children will still be children.
Mm.
The only thing, provided they are on their mark, and I don't know, but it's not all children are carrying to be on mark. So you can't tell who's asthmatic.
Yes.
Exactly. And because most of these things, we don't take time to know our educators. That's the problem in Nigeria. We all, they don't know where the report is, they don't see the stuff with the malaria, and that's the common thing we complain about. Because we are doing all this type of medication, which is the most common thing. So people don't know their educators. We don't find out the child says that, it's not good for exhaustion, it's not very well. There are so many underlying illnesses that
they are maybe responsible. Yeah.
In such a situation, if a child comes and says, I'm asthmatic, at times we don't get to believe them because of our culture. We believe our child is blind, this child does not want to walk.
Okay, so what should be the way forward now, knowing fully well that these are several challenges that are on ground and
the school can get people to clean.
Okay.
My son could have got someone to cut the grass. The person will be safe. I was there, I saw it. Somebody was told to cut the grass because all the grass, they are all grown so high and big.
Yeah.
Somebody is cutting down grasses and the person will be safe. And then the control is clearing. All this doesn't take 1 2 days. It's manual labor. Children are at home for now.
Okay.
Let us respect that aspect.
Exactly.
And let's, like I said, let the government put the necessary things in place to put schools in order. If they are going to release 1 million people who we want everything, definitely money will do the work. By the time they employ people under 1 2 days, okay, we are paying 50,000 for today, and how many of you instead of 3 or 5 of you clear the whole compound. We all know the government schools are very large. They are very big. They have large compounds, large fields. So if you say, okay, we are paying, for instance, we are paying 50,000 to 10 people that are going to clear the school and fix everything. Fine. And the school sanitation managers are there. So everybody should put all hands should be on deck. So for the children to come. For the children to come and come. We don't know whatever like the wrong anyone. And this coronavirus we're talking about, I don't think it's even good for them. How will the child come? Maybe even if interaction from the school or maybe they'll say, the child is okay, the child was still fine. The child went out, came back, and that's when we discovered this. So let the school not have any dream. Let government children as they come in.
Okay, that's a very, or those are very, very valid points, and we appreciate your call. Thank you so much, Mrs. Gladys Ine. We really appreciate. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so this is the Dialogue Box on Blossom Nigeria, and we are still talking the evaluation of government's decision to reopen schools. How prepared are they? A lot of our government schools are still not looking very ready, and several of them are having to deal with lots of maybe trying to get cleaners to help out with the cleaning of the schools, the facilities. So several things that they still need to put in place, and even the guidelines that are being given to private schools, the government schools themselves, they have not really fully implemented this in the government schools. So what is the situation on ground? Why is it that some measures are used for private schools and the government schools don't use those same measures? So we'll look at some of the guidelines like what we're talking about here. We have it like in the fumigation of schools, and other measures include we have training of teachers and other personnel on safety and hygiene measures. We also have establishing a COVID-19 referral system, provision of an ambulance, and access to a testing, isolation, and treatment center. So you can see these are some of the conditions that government is giving even to the private schools, and they are working about to see to it that private schools implement this. But the question is, the government schools themselves, they've not even gone halfway in implementing these things, and they want the students to open, or rather they want the schools to open. Then we still have another one like the provision of adequate water, sanitation and hygiene, which is under the acronym WASH. WASH facilities across school premises, then establishment of staff and students committee for regular surveillance, monitoring and enforcement of COVID-19 guidelines. So these are some of the conditions given to the private school. So we don't see any reason why there should be some like differences in execution. Whatever you are telling the private schools to do, the public schools should do the same, because they are supposed to be even the model schools that the private schools should look up to in the execution of whatever that they have to do. So we want a situation, or we think that this should give room for a situation where government should go beyond just saying it in the offices, but going around to school compounds to provide all of these things, hand sanitizers in classrooms, in hostels, ensure that students are tutored on even the importance of sanitization, especially in the COVID-19 era. And schools are to enforce as much as possible, maybe the social distancing or physical distancing, but is a little very challenging in schools because of, like we said earlier last week, children will always be children. So it's difficult to keep them, to separate them. It will be difficult. Then we still have some of them also include disinfection of their feet, shoes, that should be strongly encouraged frequently for each student to reduce bacterial infection, and that could easily lead to other ailments according to some of the other conditions that they gave. So we are wondering how many students are ready to disinfect shoes or to disinfect their feet. So some of these terms are okay, but a lot of them are not practicable. Then we still have that the state government is directing all SS3 and technical students, those in the technical schools, in both the boarding schools and the day school, that they must resume on Tuesday, that's August 4th, tomorrow. So, but with these terms and conditions, which are okay, but the question is, are they practicable? Are they ideal? And is the government ready for the execution of these? And like our last caller said, a lot of funds have been set aside for to contain the COVID-19 pandemic itself, that's the virus itself, both from international organizations and even within Nigeria, several stakeholders, businessmen, several people that gave in billions to see to it that COVID-19 will not become a pandemic that is out of hand. But with all of this, education should be given prior attention. Because as it is right now, if we work with what is available it is not a good one. That even from most public schools, not up to 50% have even gone around to do any form of fumigation. And most of the classes are still not ready. And like we just said, at the end of the day, some of the students will be used as cleaners for these facilities that are supposed to be fumigated even before the students resume, which is not good enough. So we think that all that needs to be done should be done. I'm trying to get some of our written comments here. All that needs to be done should be done. But for any reason, if we still have some schools that are trying to meet up, they should be supported in any way possible. All right, just a second. Let's give you some of our feedback here. We say, Coco says that the question is the government ready? Can government schools meet up with the guidelines? The answer is emphatic no. So it concludes by saying that Nigeria's government should learn from Cameroon. So Coco, what do you want the government to learn from Cameroon? Would have appreciated a little more detail. Then we still have from Yeshua Eben. He says, Coco, what a shame. Sometimes I feel it's a crime to be a Nigerian. Our government, they shame us. That's according to him. But I thought you'd give me some solutions here, both Coco and Yeshua Eben. I need a way forward. So that from what we have seen so far, government is doing its bit, but at the end of the day, we need a lot more. The measures out there are not practical enough. And all that we have received so far is just more of rhetorics, giving them guidelines, giving them what they should do. But what is the level of practicality is not being looked into. And only for us to hear that from Ogun State, they are asking private school parents or parents of the students in private schools to pay 25,000 naira for testing for COVID-19 or whatever else they have to do with COVID-19 testing kits. But if you are not giving this to public school students, why should you give it to private school students? So these are areas where Ogun State, like we said earlier, look into it again and rewind or resigned on your decision. This is not good at all. And a lot of the parents are already protesting, and we don't want it to go further than that. So for us in Lagos State and in different parts of the country, we have reports also reaching us from Cross River State. Schools are also getting ready. So for all of that, we know it's a good one for students to resume, but the right environment should be put in place. The enabling environment should be put in place. And what government is telling others to do in terms of the guidelines, in terms and conditions for the reopening of schools, they also should be willing to implement, and that is very key. So thank you so much for staying with us on this edition of Dialogue Box. Like we said, tomorrow we'll be discussing Nigeria's foreign debt profile and how much more can be done in times like this to reduce even the debt profile further, instead of maybe borrowing some more, asking someone like former president, or rather vice president Atiku Abubakar has said, that it is giving Nigeria the opportunity to give choice infrastructure to lender nations, because it's not helping the nation develop as it should. So we'll look into all of this tomorrow and we'll give you more facts, more details, and we expect it to also be a core part of it. So thank you so much for staying with us on this edition of Dialogue Box on Blossom Nigeria. Till we meet again tomorrow, and Blossom, and I believe in the Nigerian dream.